There's like 7 cops out here. They just blocked the drive-thru. The guy over there doesn't want to come out. I don't know why. Dude. Holy, dude. Holy dude, they just fired on that guy.
What you just heard was some cell phone video, audio from cell phone video at a Taco Bell in Vallejo, California. Vallejo PD just killed someone that was sleeping in their vehicle at a Taco Bell drive-thru recently. And apparently, from what I've been able to gather in the press from different media accounts is, and also what was released publicly by way of statement as a result of a public records request, was that yes, he was sleeping in the car. Mr. Willie McCoy, 20 years old, was sleeping in his car and had apparently reached at his shoulder to scratch an itch, as best as I can understand it. And this is apparently another instance in where Vallejo police officers have slain someone recently. Actually, in 2018, they shot someone to death. And I'm reminded also of an incident where a Vallejo police officer assaulted someone who was on their front porch of their own residence that happened to be taking cell phone footage of a traffic stop that ended in this individual's driveway. But let me get back to the original point here, the original conversation. Now, this defies any logic in my mind at all, not even remotely so, because you encounter someone that's sleeping in their car. I mean, yeah, sure, you don't expect anyone to be asleep in a drive-through parking lot, right? I mean, regardless if they're under the influence of anything or what have you, they're posing no threat at that moment. Someone that appears to be out of it at the time in which you approach the vehicle. Now, I'm speaking from direct past experience of contacting people in parked vehicles on a number of occasions in the middle of the night. Deserted roads. I believe I might have contacted somebody one time in a drive-through myself, but they didn't end up dead. So apparently there's some explaining to do, because as best as I was able to see and read and comprehend in a relative sense, is there are up to 7 or 8 officers on scene. Now let me read a couple of news accounts here from I guess reputable sources, more reputable than me anyway. The family of a 20-year-old California rapper who was fatally shot by police in Taco Bell drive-thru said an officer's body cam footage shows the victim was not awake when the trigger-happy cops opened fire. That's according to electronicurbanreportweb.com, Lee Bailey's entity here. Matter of fact, Willie McCoy appeared to be scratching himself, not grabbing for a weapon, as law officials alleged. What we saw was a sleeping man, David Harrison, a cousin of McCoy, said. He reaches with his right arm to his left shoulder, scratching. He wasn't awake. There wasn't enough time for him to wake up. As we previously reported, the EUR Web, police in the Bay Area city of Vallejo said the incident went down when employees at the Taco Bell called 911 about a driver slumped over in a car at the drive-through. Now, that could very well have been a check the well-being instance, right? But it seems to me that these officers approached this location thinking that they were going to war. I mean, if I'm allowed to think that way for a second. So the 911 call was generated when two patrol officers initially arrived, which is not uncommon. So when two patrol officers arrived on the scene, they claimed that they noticed a handgun in McCoy's lap and called for backup. Once backup arrived, 6 officers wasted little time in firing multiple rounds. Now this is a commentary now of this EUR web. Okay, I'm reading off of this. Actually, according to MSN.com as well. Once backup arrived, 6 officers reportedly wasted little time in firing multiple rounds at McCoy in the span of 4 seconds. It's unclear how many bullets struck him, but his family said at least 20 may have hit his car, according to MSN.com. And it seems like it was an execution. Seems like an execution, Harrison said. It looks like my baby cousin was executed by a firing squad. Now there was recently a case that just wrapped in Florida, and that officer in that particular situation was sentenced for I believe he hasn't been sentenced yet, but he's been convicted of manslaughter over the shooting of an individual that was in the van who turned out it was a musician that had left, and I guess encountered some mechanical problems with his van, and this undercover officer, who apparently had been in the area on an unrelated unrelated investigation, in an unmarked vehicle in plain clothes, encountered the individual. I forget his name right now. I hadn't looked it up prior to this broadcast here because this was just going to be a quick hit, a quick shot here. But anyway, undercover officer opens fire apparently after seeing a gun because the person had been licensed to legally possess. And it's understandable because we're talking about the state of Florida. We're talking about late hour of the night. We're talking about a musician that left a gig, encountered a problem with their car. It's not and plus they're an adult, a law-abiding citizen. So it's reasonable to probably expect that they might possibly be armed, right? Especially late at night. And you're in plain clothes, walk up to this vehicle, and then you react by shooting at it because you think you're being threatened. And apparently, the subject that was in the vehicle, the gentleman that was in the vehicle, may have gotten his handgun, may not have, but he thought he was. I'm sure he thought he was being robbed. Now, if this so-called "quote unquote" undercover officer had been in uniform and had more than just that tin shield and an authoritative voice, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now about someone shot dead in their van. But I digress. Getting back to Vallejo, though, Vallejo, it seems to me, has had a history, right? Because they're in the San Francisco Chronicle. There's a story that I found from February 23rd, actually, of this year. But apparently, the same officer that was involved with this recent shooting was involved in a shooting that resulted in the death of somebody else back in 2018. Let me see if I can open this up. All right, I had to reload the page because I had trouble getting it to scroll. I'm trying to get the here it is right here. Okay, it's the title is Vallejo Officer and Willie McCoy Shooting Killed Another Man in 2018. A Vallejo officer involved in the February 9th shooting of Willie McCoy also shot and killed another man nearly a year earlier, according to public records. On Wednesday evening, the Vallejo Police Department released the names of 6 officers involved in the February 9th shooting, and it goes on to name the officers. McMahon, M-C-M-M-little-C-M-A-H-O-N, McMahon was the one involved in the prior shooting from 2018. That incident began when he and another unidentified police officer followed a Ronell Foster February 13th, 2019, or 2018, I'm sorry, 2018, as he biked through downtown Vallejo. Authorities said Foster struck McMahon on his head with a flashlight and tried to flee the scene, which prompted the officer to shoot Foster in back of the head. How much more glaringly wrong can you be? First of all, you're striking a man in the head with a flashlight. After striking the man with a flashlight, sure, it's understandable that you're going to run off. And this prompted the officer to shoot Foster in the back of the head. I also ran across another article. Where is it? Let me see. I also ran, Vallejo Police Chief announces retirement in wake of protests and concerns over police. That's 2 days ago, according to a San Francisco media outlet here. Yeah, Vallejo Police Chief announces retirement in the wake of protests, concerns over police misconduct or police conduct, it says. So yeah, they got some problems. And I guess we can say federal oversight should follow, but who has any trust in that right now? I mean, you have to judge it base it on case by case instance here, and this is glaringly obvious that Vallejo Police definitely has a problem. Definitely. So I was trying to get some audio up for you, but all this has just been happening. I mean, it's been happening for years, but it's coming more to the forefront. And I'm jumping around to another item here. South Florida police officer has been suspended after video circulated on social media showing him putting a black woman in a headlock after she called to report a crime. Now, I saw this video too. I watched this yesterday at length, and apparently a neighbor. Well, she's walking down the street in her neighborhood, and a quote unquote neighbor. This is not, wasn't involved in neighborly conduct, but this neighbor apparently they engaged in an argument with the neighbor. She was with another young woman. Let me just read the article to you right now. Diamond Loving has said that she had called 911 on March 5th after getting into an argument with her neighbor who waved a shotgun at her. A shotgun. Okay? She told reporters that the neighbor had called her and her friend whores. She said the two had ignored it at first, but her friend, Adriana Green, eventually threw a potted plant toward the neighbor's yard. Okay? The neighbor, a white man, then allegedly pulled out a shotgun and said he would shoot my burnt black ass face off my neck. That's what she told the Miami News Times. When police showed up, they interviewed the two women. One officer, later identified by the department as Alejandro Gerardo, started interrogating us like we were the suspects. And I saw that. I watched that video, and it obviously seemed one-sided. The way he was behaving, the way his mannerisms were, and the way he sounded accusatory towards people that actually called the police. Right? And that's completely asinine. It has nothing to do with service to the public, so on and so forth. So it would seem to me that in this case, him being pulled off of duty, being suspended, is a good measure, a good step in the right direction, because this is the type of individual that's not needed out there in the streets. All right, so yeah, here's a snippet right now coming up.
Just calm down.
You know what? She needs to be corrected, if anything.
Calm down.
All right?
Why?
Why do I?
Now, did you hear that? He said that she needs to be corrected, if anything. And I don't understand what that's supposed to mean. I mean, he wants to enact some form of corrective measures out there on the street. And all she was doing, even though she was a bit emotional, and you can understand if somebody pulled a shotgun out on you, how emotional you can be, or any type of weapon, or even called you out of your name. But let me play this.
To be corrected when my life was just threatened and my daughter's sick. I just want to go to
Are you
the
gonna
store
continue
and
screaming?
charge my
No,
phone.
please stop. She didn't even do nothing.
Touch me. Do not touch me. Do not touch me.
All right, so I'm not seeing any reason why with this force continuum that's applied, because first of all, you had command presence. You had 3 uniformed officers detaining someone on the street, or actually, even in the case of detainment. They should have been in the mode of information gathering and providing a public service. But apparently, they saw fit to correct this person. Correct this person for what is unclear. I have not been able, since I've been studying this video, since I've seen it, from the standpoint of them contacting this young lady, there are some unanswered questions in my mind as far as why. And the only thing that you could really understand is that he was just trying to inflict his will and enforce his power of perceived authority upon this woman during this instance. Makes no sense.
What the heck? I am. What the? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?
So they wind up taking her down to the ground, twisting her arm. 3 officers, 1 female, looks like 1 female and 2 males. The 4th officer shows up. She's lying in a supine position on the ground. And they take her in custody. Now this reminds me of a case in Fort Worth where a woman called about her son being accosted by someone in the neighborhood, by a white male that basically spoke out of turn to a kid. Kid comes home, tells his mom what happened. Mom calls the police and expects help. What ends up happening? She gets taken to jail. Of course, the officer was white. The officer felt like his time was being wasted by being there. I saw that video too. But anyway, that was just a quick number of things I'm working on here to hopefully post up to my blog site, as well as talk about here on the Cogent Talk channel, otherwise known as the Congentivist Chronicles. And I'm your host today. Didn't mean to go this long, but just wanted to post up anyway and say hello and let y'all know what's going on. And I'm not blind to what's going on here, even in global news, but we'll get to that story in another broadcast. We'll talk to y'all later.